Welcome to a deep dive, into the incredible story of Hindustan Unilever Limited, HUL. You might know for their soaps, shampoos, or even ice cream, but their journey is about way more than just products. We're going to uncover how this company, which started as a colonial-era soap importer, became a symbol of corporate India itself, intertwined with the nation's history, economy, and even its culture.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story of adaptation, resilience, and an almost uncanny ability to understand the pulse of the Indian consumer. We're talking about a company that's navigated over a century of massive change, from British colonialism to economic liberalization and everything in between.
All started in the late 1800s with a guy named William Hesketh Lever, a visionary entrepreneur who revolutionized the soap industry. And he wasn't just selling a product, he was selling this idea of hygiene and health, which was pretty revolutionary back then.
And that vision wasn't just about marketing, it was deeply ingrained in Labor's personal beliefs. He built this model village for his workers near Liverpool called Port Sunlight, complete with housing, schools, and even healthcare. This wasn't just charity, it was a reflection of his belief in the well-being of his employees and a commitment to creating a better society.
That's incredible. So Labor's big hit was Sunlight Soap, right? It took off in Britain, and then it was like, hey, why not India? But India wasn't just another market, it was a whole different ballgame.
Exactly. Imagine trying to sell soap in a country with a tropical climate, diverse washing habits, and vast economic disparities. What worked in Britain wouldn't necessarily work in India. They had to adapt or risk failing.
And adapt they did, setting up a factory in Bombay in 1931 to produce Vanaspati, better known as Dalda, was a brilliant move. They were showing a commitment to manufacturing in India using local ingredients and catering to local tastes.
This move also reveals a shift in their strategy. They were no longer just importers. They were becoming an integral part of the Indian manufacturing landscape, demonstrating a deeper understanding of the market.
But then in 1947, India gained independence, and the game changed again. Being a British company in a newly independent India presented a unique set of challenges.
Imagine navigating that transition. How do you shed the image of a colonial entity and become a truly Indian company? Unilever made some very strategic moves. They changed their name to Hindustan Lever Limited, listed on the Indian stock market, and appointed their first Indian chairman, Prakash Tandon.
Prakash Tandon's leadership must have been pivotal during those times. He had the difficult task of bridging the gap between Unilever's legacy and India's aspirations as a newly independent nation.
Absolutely. Tandon understood both the company and the changing Indian landscape. His leadership was crucial in establishing HLL as an Indian company with a global outlook.
But then the 1950s and 60s brought another set of hurdles with India's socialist policies. Import controls restrictions on foreign companies. It wasn't exactly a welcoming environment for a multinational.
This is where HLL's resilience truly shines. Instead of retreating, they doubled down on their commitment to India. They invested heavily in local R&D, focused on training Indian talent, and even ventured into sectors that the government prioritized.
And their R&D wasn't just about fancy labs. It was about solving real-world problems for Indian consumers, right?
Exactly. They were developing detergent formulas that worked in hard water and with manual washing innovations born out of necessity and a deep understanding of the Indian consumer's daily life.
That's fascinating. It wasn't just about selling a product. It was about understanding the very fabric of life in India and finding solutions that fit right in.
Their success during this period wasn't just about riding out the storm, it was about turning constraints into opportunities. They weren't simply reacting to the market. They were shaping it by anticipating and catering to the unique needs of Indian consumers.
And then they took on the mammoth task of winning over rural India in the 70s and 80s. Reaching those consumers, understanding their needs, and building a distribution network must have been incredibly challenging.
It was. Reaching rural consumers required an entirely different approach. It wasn't just about logistics. It was about understanding the nuances of rural life, their aspirations, and their cultural sensitivities. They had to adapt everything from product design to marketing to distribution.
But they weren't alone in the market, were they? Local competitors like Nirma started emerging and posing a serious threat to HLL's dominance, especially with their low-priced detergents.
This was a classic David versus Goliath situation. Nirma's success forced HLL to confront a new kind of competitor and rethink their strategies. They had to defend their market share while appealing to a more price-conscious consumer.
And that's where the iconic Surf versus a Nirma campaign featuring Lalitaji, the discerning housewife, comes in right.
Exactly. That campaign was a masterclass in consumer education, brilliantly disguised as entertainment. They were essentially teaching people about the concept of value for money, that sometimes paying a bit more for quality could actually save you money in the long run.
That's a clever way to tackle a competitor.
Mm.
But then 1991 hit, and economic liberalization changed everything. Suddenly, the market was flooded with international brands, and Indian consumers had more choices than ever before.
This was a pivotal moment in India's economic history, and it had a profound impact on HUL. The playing field was leveled, and they had to compete with global giants while also adapting to the evolving tastes of the Indian consumer.
So how did HUL respond to this new wave of competition and the changing landscape? They couldn't rely solely on their legacy brands and established strategies anymore, could they?
They had to evolve and innovate, and that's exactly what they did. They introduced a slew of international brands like Dove and Pond's, streamlined their structure, and embarked on a strategic acquisition spree, acquiring brands like Quality Ice Cream and merging with Brook Bond Lipton India.
That was a bold move. It seems like they were not just reacting to the market, but actively shaping it by expanding their reach and offering a wider variety of products.
Precisely. This wasn't just about growth, it was about anticipating how liberalization would change consumer behavior and positioning themselves at the forefront of that change. They were becoming architects of the modern Indian consumer market.
But this period also saw the rise of some incredible leaders within HUL, didn't it?
Yes, leaders like Ashok Ganguly, a Kapandera who became chairman, played a crucial role. His vision was all about applying science and technology to meet the needs of the Indian consumer. He believed that innovation should be driven by a deep understanding of local challenges and aspirations. Under his leadership, HUL's R&D really took off, leading to a wave of new product innovations.
That's really interesting. It wasn't just about bringing in global brands. It was about tailoring products and innovations specifically for the Indian market. They were blending global expertise with local insights to create something unique.
And that approach extended beyond just products. They started investing heavily in social impact initiatives like Project Shakti, which empowered rural women by making them direct-to-consumer distributors of HUL products.
Project Shakti always stood out to me. It's incredible how they managed to create a win-win situation by tackling rural distribution challenges, empowering women economically, and getting essential products to those who needed them.
Absolutely. It's a textbook example of creating shared value where the success of the business is intertwined with the well-being of the community. It demonstrated a deep understanding of the social and economic realities of rural India and a commitment to creating a positive impact.
It seems like HUL has always been about more than just profits. They've consistently tried to weave social responsibility into their business model, but they've also been known for developing some of India's top business leaders, haven't they?
They've been called the CEO factory of India for a reason. They invested in their people, creating a culture of learning and leadership. This focus on nurturing talent has been a defining feature of HUL's corporate culture.
So we've seen how HUL navigated colonialism, independence, a socialist economy, and even liberalization. But today, they face a whole new set of challenges. The digital landscape is evolving rapidly. Competition is fiercer than ever, and Indian consumers are increasingly demanding.
That's right. The question now is, can HUL, with its rich history and legacy, continue to thrive in this rapidly changing world? It's a fascinating question, isn't it? How does a company with such deep roots in the past adapt to the, dizzying pace of the digital age? And to really understand their future, we need to take a closer look at the people and the products that made HUL what it is today.
Let's dive into that. We've talked about Prakash Tandon's leadership during those early years, but there have been so many other individuals who have shaped HUL's journey. It's like they've attracted and nurtured some of the brightest minds in Indian business.
Absolutely. Take Ashok Ganguly, for example. He was a chemist who rose to become chairman, and his vision was all about leveraging science and technology to solve real problems for Indian consumers. Under his leadership, HUL's R&D efforts truly flourished, leading to some groundbreaking innovations.
It's amazing how they managed to strike that balance between global expertise and local insights.
Yeah.
They weren't just replicating what worked in other countries, they were innovating for India.
And those innovations often stemmed from the unique challenges of the Indian market. For instance, developing detergent formulas that work effectively in hard water, something most Western companies wouldn't even consider, that came from understanding the everyday realities of Indian households.
It's like they were deeply embedded in the Indian way of life, constantly observing, learning, and adapting. And it wasn't just about the products themselves, it was about creating a culture within the company that valued talent and nurtured future leaders. HUL is famous for producing some of India's top CEOs, isn't it?
They've earned the nickname CEO Factory for a reason. They cultivated a unique management style, often referred to as the HLL way, which blended rigorous analytical thinking with a deep immersion in the Indian market. They instilled a culture of learning mentorship and leadership development, which has had a ripple effect throughout the Indian corporate world.
Okay, so we've talked about the people, but now let's talk brands. We can't discuss HUL without mentioning the iconic brands that have become household names in India. Lifebuoy, Surf, Lux, Brook Bond, Noor. These brands are practically woven into the fabric of Indian life.
And each of those brands has its own fascinating story of evolution. Take Lifebuoy, for instance. It started as a simple carbolic soap focused on hygiene and health protection, especially during a time when sanitation was a major concern. It was that classic red brick of soap that many of us remember from our childhoods.
You know, you're right. My grandmother used to swear by Lifebuoy. She always said it was the only soap that truly kept you clean and healthy.
Exactly. It was a brand that built trust over generations. But as times changed, Lifebuoy evolved too. They modernized the formulations, introduced new fragrances, and updated the packaging to appeal to a younger audience. But they never strayed from that core message of health and protection. It's a perfect example of adapting to changing consumer preferences without losing sight of your brand's essence.
And what about Surf? It seems like they've always been ahead of the curve, from introducing the first synthetic detergent to the brilliant Lalitaji campaign that taught us about value for money. And then there's their dirt is good philosophy, which encourages kids to get messy and experience life to the fullest.
Surf's journey is a fascinating reflection of the evolution of Indian society itself. As aspirations grew and lifestyles changed, Surf moved beyond basic cleaning to focus on stain removal, fabric care, and even emotional messaging about the importance of letting children explore and experience the world. They understood that their product wasn't just about laundry, it was about enabling a certain way of life, a certain freedom of expression.
And then there's Lux, the brand that's synonymous with beauty and glamour. From featuring Bollywood stars in their ads to constantly adapting to changing beauty ideals, Lux has always been about giving women that touch of luxury and aspiration.
Lux is a masterclass in marketing and brand building. They've managed to stay relevant for generations of Indian women by tapping into their desires for self-expression, confidence, and a touch of indulgence. It's not just soap, it's an emotion, an aspiration, a way of life.
And let's not forget about HUL's strategic acquisitions and mergers, which have played a huge role in their growth and dominance. Bringing in Brook Bond and Lipton, for instance, was a game changer in the tea market.
Those acquisitions weren't just about adding brands to their portfolio, they were about understanding the Indian consumer's evolving needs and preferences. They recognized the importance of tea in Indian culture and strategically expanded their presence in this key category.
It's clear that HUL has always had a knack for understanding what the Indian consumer wants, even before they know it themselves. And they've been able to translate that understanding into successful products and brands. But we've also talked about their commitment to social impact and sustainability. Project Shakti is a prime example of that.
Project Shakti is a testament to HUL's ability to create a business model that's both profitable and socially responsible. It wasn't just about corporate social responsibility, it was about creating shared value, where the success of the business was intertwined with the empowerment of rural women and the well-being of communities.
They've also been pioneers in water conservation, haven't they? Both in their manufacturing processes and through community initiatives.
Yes, they recognized early on that water scarcity is a critical issue in India, and they've made significant efforts to reduce their water footprint. They've innovated to reduce water consumption in their factories, developed products that require less water to use, and even implemented rainwater harvesting and water conservation programs in the communities where they operate.
It's impressive how they've integrated sustainability into their operations and even their product development. But now the big question is, how is a company with such a long and rich history adapting to the digital revolution? The world is changing at an unprecedented pace, and the digital landscape is incredibly competitive and complex.
That's the challenge, isn't it? Can a traditional giant keep up with the agility and innovation of startups and tech companies? Can they transform themselves to thrive in a world dominated by e-commerce, social media, and constantly evolving consumer behaviors?
Well, they've certainly made some significant moves in the digital space. Their Shikar app, for example, is a great example of how they're leveraging technology to connect directly with retailers and streamline their supply chain.
That's right. They've recognized the importance of embracing e-commerce and have invested heavily in building their online presence. They're partnering with major e-commerce platforms, developing their own direct-to-consumer channels, and experimenting with new ways to reach and engage with consumers online.
And their marketing has also gone through a digital transformation, hasn't it? They're leveraging social media platforms, creating engaging online campaigns, and using data analytics to understand consumer behavior in the digital world.
Absolutely. It's not just about using the latest technologies, it's about a fundamental shift in mindset. They're trying to become more agile, data-driven, and customer-centric, which are essential qualities for success in the digital age.
So it sounds like HUL is on the right track, but it's still a work in progress.
Hmm.
They're trying to bridge that gap between their legacy of strong brands and deep market understanding with the agility and innovation demanded by the digital world.
Exactly. Their future success will depend on their ability to effectively blend the best of their past with the demands of the present and the possibilities of the future. It's an exciting journey to watch unfold.
It really is a fascinating story of transformation and adaptation. They're writing a new chapter, but it's built on this incredible foundation of experience and a deep understanding of the Indian consumer.
Exactly. Over a century of navigating change, building brands that people trust, and understanding the nuances of the Indian market, that's a powerful legacy to build upon.
But the consumer landscape is so different now. People have more choices, more information at their fingertips. They're not just passively consuming. They're actively engaging, demanding more from the brands they interact with.
That's true. Consumers are more discerning, more aware of the impact their choices have on the world, and they expect the brands they support to reflect their values.
And speaking of values, we've talked about HUL's commitment to social impact with initiatives like Project Shakti and their efforts in water conservation. But are they doing enough to address the bigger issues that consumers care about today? Things like climate change, inequality, ethical sourcing. These are things that people are increasingly passionate about.
It's a valid question. They've certainly stepped up their sustainability initiatives in recent years. They've committed to reducing their carbon footprint, using more sustainable packaging, sourcing responsibly, and promoting fair labor practices. But are they doing enough? And are they communicating their efforts effectively to consumers? That's the challenge for any company trying to navigate this new landscape of conscious consumerism.
It's a tough balancing act. They have to demonstrate genuine commitment and action while also ensuring that their message resonates with consumers who are bombarded with information and marketing messages from all sides.
It's not enough to just do good. You have to be seen doing good. And you have to do it authentically because consumers can see through greenwashing and empty promises. They want to see real action, real impact, and real transparency.
And they're not just facing scrutiny from consumers, they're also facing fierce competition. We talked about Nirma earlier, but now there are local startups disrupting traditional categories, and global giants are also vying for a piece of the Indian market. It's a whole new ballgame.
It's a multi-front battle for market share and consumer loyalty. They have to defend their existing position while simultaneously innovating to capture new segments and stay ahead of emerging trends. It's a challenge that requires agility, strategic thinking, and a willingness to embrace new ideas.
So what does this all mean for HUL? What's the takeaway for our listeners who are interested in understanding the future of this iconic company?
HUL's story is a microcosm of India's journey itself. It's a story of ambition, resilience, adaptation, and a deep understanding of the Indian consumer. Their successes and challenges offer valuable lessons for anyone interested in business marketing or even just understanding the dynamics of the Indian market.
It's a story that highlights the importance of staying connected to your roots, understanding the pulse of the consumer, and constantly evolving to meet their changing needs and aspirations.
And it underscores the importance of purpose-driven business. It's not just about profits anymore. It's about creating value for all stakeholders, consumers, employees, communities, and the planet itself.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the fascinating world of HUL, we leave you with this thought. Their journey is a testament to the power of adaptability, innovation, and a deep understanding of the human spirit. What can we learn from their story? And how can we apply those lessons to our own lives, our own choices, and our own vision for the future? Keep those questions in mind as you continue to explore the ever-changing world around us. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.